Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 17 of the Hammer and Nail Show. I'm Jack Hammer. Here's my co-host, Jessie Naylor. Hope everybody's doing really good tonight, and a lot of stuff to talk about. A lot of good things going down in 49er football. How you doing tonight, Jessie?
I'm doing good. I still, every single time, cannot believe how you remember what episode it is. And you could say it's the 32nd or the 4th, and I'd be like, yep, sounds right. We're good.
Yeah, that's having to go back and do some cheating there to make sure I remember, because I do the same thing every week. I'm like, what episode are we on tonight? Yeah, so I gotta have that
last week to
yes.
like it.
Yep. So you said you're doing good?
Yeah, man, I'm doing fantastic. It seems like everything is jumping off in Niner land. It's crazy because when the draft was coming up, I felt like the 49ers were the center of the football universe. And yet again, with this quarterback controversy, non-controversy, I feel like they're starting to become the center of the universe again. And really it all boils up to Trey Lance makes the 49ers important to everybody outside of 49er land. And that's a great thing. I love it because for years to come, we're going to get national exposure, which means everybody's going to see the 49ers and most importantly, Trey Lance on display. And I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, that is for sure, because you don't, when you get a guy in the top three like the 49ers did, and then you also had the 49ers being one of the premier franchises in the NFL already, put those two things together and it's kind of a box office bonanza. I think folks, even on next Saturday when they take on the Chiefs, I think the ratings for that preseason game are going to be kind of through the roof with people wanting to watch that first half of that game and see get their first glimpse of Trey Lance, the ones that haven't been able to be there for training camp practices and so on.
Yeah.
And everything, all the reports have been really good. The days that I've been there, the last 2 days of practice, he was lights out on Wednesday and Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 incompletions. And that's the kind of stuff that you and I were talking about, going back when we were, in the draft process, right. And who they were going to take and what he brings to the table. So he's just been really impressive. And, Mike McDaniel yesterday in his press conference talked a little bit about just what a good job Trey Lance is doing, grasping the 49ers offense. I know that was kind of where we wanted to start tonight. What were your takeaways from his comments?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely encouraging, and it's not surprising, not for us anyways, because we talked to Coach McAvoy, and McAvoy told us that he was a savant when it came to picking up playbooks, and when he would have meetings during the draft process with other coaches, how it turned into a session where he was teaching them things on the whiteboard. And I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds like his quarterback coach trying to pump him up, but the reality is everything that he told us has come to light. And when we interviewed him the second time, that was one of the questions we asked. We're like, hey, is it possible that Trey Lance learns this offense a lot faster than what people realize? And he said, yes, absolutely. NDSU has a very verbose playbook. It's a very deep playbook. There's a lot going on. There's a lot with play action. There's a lot under center. There's a lot with him having to know protections and audibles. And on top of that, even when he wasn't playing and Easton Stick was the quarterback there, they would do a scenario where Easton would do a play and then he would come in and have to do the same exact play and run it to perfection. And that was as a true freshman when he was getting no burn. So the fact that we heard all of that, we're like, no. By the time this season starts, he's going to have a full grasp of the offense. And here we are roughly a month before it. And McDaniel's saying it's nice because we kind of have a coach on the field. And it just brings me back to, we've never heard any of this about Jimmy, right? So for him to do this 3 months into this process and wow people, not only with the throws that he's making, not only with the poise, not only with the legs, but now that he's wowing everybody in the building from the shoulders up, extremely impressive.
Yeah, and that's what you go back to that interview as you mentioned already about the one we did with Coach McAvoy, and that's the one that just keeps popping back. And I kind of retweeted that out today because everything that we talked about in that interview is like you said, it's showing up, and it shows up. I when I was watching practice on this last week, especially when they were in team, and I just I said over and over everything that we had and everything we talked about in that conversation is showing up on the field. Everything that we talked about as far as what was showing up on the film is showing up on this field. And what's so impressive about it is, he did it against the, FCS competition in college, and he got knocked for that. Now he's doing it against guys in the NFL, and
he's still getting knocked for it.
I was going to go there. Yes, exactly. Because it's that and even though it might seem like he's the same player, he's not, because like you just said, he's playing against guys at the NFL level. They're better. Everybody out there, even if he's playing against the backups, is better than what he faced at North Dakota State, top to bottom. But it's just impressive, and everything that like you said, everything that Coach McAvoy told us is showing up right in front of our faces every day. And if there's anybody out there that's watching this that hasn't seen that, go ahead and jump on Jay's channel or mine and take a look at that, because it's very important to help you understand who the quarterback is that you're watching on the field with the 49ers come next Sunday or Saturday night, excuse me.
It's funny because you and I were really on the same page about this, and we didn't even talk about it. You had tweeted out those things this morning and talked about that interview, and I actually wrote an article last night that got published today that referenced that interview as well, and basically saying what you just said, which is everything Coach told us about Trey was right all along. Every single thing. It wasn't him hyping up his player. It was him just telling us what reality is. And everybody that's seeing it in person is extremely wowed. And you've got this segment of the fan base that maybe they just need to see it, right? Seeing is believing. But right now, they're not trying to hear it. They don't like the source. I don't know. It's he hasn't played a snap. He hasn't. It's always something. It's he's doing it without pads. Let's see how it happens with pads. Okay, well, how about he gets better when the pads get put on? Well, but he's not doing it against the first team. And then when he does it against the first team, let's see it with live bullets. It's going to be constant. And the reality is, this kid is that good. Plain and simple, this is who he is. If everybody, regardless of if you like the source, whether it's Grant or you or Mayoko or whoever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
If everybody is telling you the same thing, and everybody who's been a part of this organization from afar and seen these practices in the past are telling you this kid is different and he's special, at what point do you just listen? That's just a question I have for that segment. When do you just listen? He is this good. Be excited. This is our future. And even if and that's the other thing. It's not like we don't want Jimmy to succeed, right? And it's not like Jimmy isn't succeeding. This is the scenario that I talked about a lot leading up to this is Jimmy can be at his best and it still won't be as good as Trey. And that's a good thing for 49er fans. We should be happy about that. We want Jimmy to be at his best because if Trey can be better as a rookie than Jimmy at his best, we've got somebody really special on our hands, and we should just be happy about that.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and I like your point about fans maybe not liking the source. And what's interesting to me about that is that pretty much every source that's out there right now that's attending practice is telling you the same thing. There's really only one that I can think of who isn't stating how good Lance is in comparison to Garoppolo. It's still there's pretty much everybody else that's there is saying this guy looks special. This guy is doing things that we haven't seen on the field before, and I think a lot of it comes down to what you said. They need to see it. They need to get this guy on the field, and that's why Saturday, next Saturday when they take on the Chiefs is going to be so important. And I think the ratings are going to be so big because all of a sudden everybody that's a 49er fan that has the ability to get that game is going to be able to get their eyes on this guy. And all I got to say is, this guy everything you saw him do at North Dakota State when he dominated at North Dakota State, he's doing that. He's doing that on the field every day at practice, or at least the last 2 days since they put the pads on, and it's just wild. It's extremely impressive. I can't go. I don't know if there's any other words that I can put into it. And I agree with you. If he continues on this progression, I don't see how he's not the starter week 1. I just don't, because he's so much further ahead at this point than anybody thought. And part of the reason, let me step back, and you mentioned how you had wrote the article that came out today and how I tweeted it out. I know neither one of us had talked. I didn't know that article was coming out. I had no idea. But you started to see some tweets today from myself and from Grant and whatnot about tweets that we had sent out back in early in the process, back in January, when we first started taking looks at Trey Lance. And and part of it was I was saying I was wrong. When I first looked at Trey Lance, I was wrong. I didn't see the guy that should be taken in the first round, let alone be the 3rd pick in the draft. I missed it, And then once the trade was made, I went back and I looked at it and I watched every bit of what I could do. I started doing the film breakdowns for my YouTube channel, which forced me to go slower through the material so that I can then explain it to everybody. And that process really helped me to understand probably what I think Kyle Shanahan was seeing. I made a little bit of a mistake in front, but I wanted to show everybody that I did make a mistake, and here's how it got better. And then also I wanted to make sure that they understood. Heck, I admitted that I was wrong, and I even told Coach McAvoy that in our interview that I was wrong about that. But he's everything. And then on top of that, the point that you made, as far as people doubting him, the doubt was another doubt that popped up today I saw was what's going to happen when he's doing great right now, but the quarterbacks know they can't be hit. Makes it easy to stand in the pocket when they can't be hit. So that's why if you look at my Twitter feed, there's the picture of him, the video of him in a game against South Dakota State where he's in the pocket. He has to start stepping up. There's a linebacker coming to hit him in the chest, and he delivers a strike over the middle for a big gain for a first down. Everything that people are doubting this kid about, he's done already, and it's just a matter of him going out and showing you on the field with the 49ers. And being at practice and watching him do it, believe the things that you guys are being told, and whether or not Garoppolo is a starter week 1 or it's Lance, know that the 49ers are in really good hands. When I got home on Wednesday, I talked to my brother about it, and my brother's kind of my right-hand man when it comes to football. That's how I learned football, really. And I was like, dude, this guy is the real deal. This is everything you would think that this guy could be. That's who he is. So get excited.
Yeah, it's funny that listening to you talk about how you had it wrong in the beginning. By the way, if you listened to me early on before the trade happened, when we were at 12, I had said if Lance falls to San Francisco and they take him, out of all the quarterbacks, he would be the biggest disaster. And just like you and just like really everybody else that only put eyes on him one time, there was something missed. Something big missed. And talking to Coach McAvoy, really even about a week or two before that, because I just started, diving into more and more film and really looking at it objectively and saying, this kid is something special. Like, this is something I haven't seen before. And again, people try to make comps and they ask me what my comp is, and I don't know. And that's a good thing. Every quarterback I've said I don't know about has turned out to be special. So I feel really good about this because I don't know what the comp is for Lance. But what I can say is if you've only sat down and watched a little bit or have watched somebody's breakdown on YouTube that wasn't Jack's or somebody that is on Team Lance essentially, and you did this before the draft process, chances are you're in the same boat that everybody else is the first time through. It's like there's those movies. There's Zoolander, Napoleon Dynamite that you watch one time through and you're like, what is this? And then you watch it again and you're like, oh God, this is one of the most genius comedies I've ever seen. So that's the way it is with Trey Lance. You watch it one time through and you're like, whatever. Like, there's no way. And then you watch it again and you start to hear what his responsibilities really were. And it's a whole different ball game.
Absolutely, and I know. At one point during this whole draft process, one of the guys that I really like to listen to, he's not anybody that anybody knows. He's just one of the guys that used to always comment over at the Press Democrat blog, and he was the guy that early in the process, the year that Patrick Mahomes came out, he was all over Patrick Mahomes. Grant's had him on his channel in a couple of videos, but one of the things that he was talking about was, part of the reason he liked Mahomes was because of the background and his makeup. And I think that goes into part of what we all missed about Trey Lance, because I did not realize that Trey Lance's dad had been in the NFL and been a 49er and on that, trying to make the roster in 94 until right before the draft, right before he got selected. That's when I found that out. And if I had known that a little bit earlier, there might have been, it's just, kids of, if your father was a professional athlete at any level, you're going to get some teaching that other kids aren't going to get, no matter, and not necessarily, you might not get their genes as far as their athletic ability, but you're going to learn things that other people aren't going to learn, because those guys know how to compete, and they're going to be able to teach their kids how to compete. And that's one of the biggest things I think with Trey Lance is, I think that, he sounds like he's a great guy, but he's a heck of a competitor, and he knows how to compete. And from everything I've heard, he did it really well in basketball, and he's, gone on to do that in the, in football as well. So it's pretty amazing. I think that would be the one thing that I know I missed outside of the football that makes guys a winner.
Yeah, and if he starts week one, one of the things I keep getting is, oh, you're going to be vindicated. Like, you were the one on this, and da-da. It's like, listen, it truly is not about that. For me, knowing that Trey Lance was recruited to play safety and linebacker, going to an FCS school, playing 1 year with a limited amount of passes, coming to the NFL, everything being traded for him, and still right now he's being doubted. For me, it's proving Trey Lance right. That's the most important thing, and that's why I'm pounding the drum, because I know how special this kid's going to be. A lot of people are starting to see it. We saw it, for a while now, but I know that this kid is going to be different, okay? And I'm not saying he's going to be Steve Young or Joe Montana, but I would be shocked if at a minimum he's not the third best quarterback this franchise has ever seen by far and away. And Trey Lance is a kid that we could potentially have as our quarterback for the next 15 plus years. It's time to get excited, and it's time to just be full in behind this kid. Let's get him started. If he's the best player, which it seems like he is, I don't care what's going on, training camp, preseason, whatever. Let's just get fully behind this kid, because he is our future, and he is going to be special. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, no, 100%. And that's a great segue into our next topic. You continue to see, hear Kyle Shanahan talking about, not really fully saying that Lance is the guy. He's kind of holding him back a little bit. So why do you think Shanahan might be doing that?
I think there's multiple things going into it, right? One, he wants Lance to outright win this job. And I think knowing Lance and knowing what we just talked about, how he's been doubted his whole life, I think Shanahan's playing this smart, because I feel like he knows what motivates Trey Lance. He knows how he ticks, and he doesn't want to pat him on the back too early, right? He wants to make sure that his head stays on straight, he stays focused at the task at hand, and if for some reason it all falls apart and he is not the starter week one, then there's no pressure, right? So I think that's a part of it. I also think that it's reality. They're trying to get something for Jimmy G. And there's not a lot out there, I'm sure. But if you can do anything to pump his value and to get anything for him, you've got to continue to do that. And then I would say lastly is there's really no rush for Shanahan to say that Trey Lance is the starter, because if you can hold off the Lions and the league from truly knowing what's about to hit them, that's the best case scenario. Unleash him week one, the day before the game, the day of the game, however you want to do it, and let him wreak havoc on the league. And the less notification they have to game plan for that and get ready for that, the better it is for this team.
Yeah, I really like that answer. That's one really good way of looking at it. And the way that I look at it is different. I mean, I get your point. That's a really good one. I just look at this as Lance needs to prove to the team that he's the best quarterback.
Yep.
And you're starting to hear a lot of that from players when they're talking about him. They're all, you can hear that they're getting jazzed and jacked up about getting a chance to play with this guy. I think it was DJ Jones yesterday who, when asked about it during the presser, was like, "Yeah, of course we're watching. The kid's out of this world." That's not exactly what he said, but that's basically, and everybody that they talked to was kind of saying the same thing. And so I don't think that, we're saying holding him back. I don't really think that he's holding him back. I think he's really letting him go. But in terms of naming him the starter, it's like you said, he's forcing him to earn this job, and he's going to continue to force him to win it. And make it real. I think really what Shanahan wants is he wants it to be where he doesn't have a choice but to play Trey Lance, because Trey Lance is doing such a good job that if he doesn't put him in the game, he's going to look like a fool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually want to piggyback on something that Javier Vega said. Javi's a very smart guy, and I was a part of a Twitter chat group earlier on today, and he said something that was very interesting, very astute, and I think everybody needs to hear it. It's semantics at this point. He's saying, hey, this isn't a battle. He's not playing with the ones, but really he is playing with the ones. Whenever does a backup quarterback play with the starting receivers on a regular basis and the starting center? Why else would you do that? So yes, you can say he's technically not playing with the ones, but they're getting him a familiarity with all the starting weapons and the snap exchange with the starting center. There's a reason for that. And it's brilliant. It's so true. It's so true.
Yeah. No, that's definitely. And the other one too was on Wednesday's practice when Lance did sneak in, and they did have him run that one rep with the first team, and Shanahan was questioned about it. He said, "Well, that's a play that we want our first team offensive line to get used to running, and only Trey's going to run it." I think that was a little bit of a tell as well.
For sure. Absolutely, It is. And by the way, the one play that he did have against the first team, guess what? 15 yards, no issue. So he can do it against any of them, I promise you.
Yeah. No, he's super athletic. He's just a freak. It's amazing stuff. Before we jump over to the next topic, I just wanted to hit this one really quick. This is, I think, a good one. We can kind of take a look at this one. But Luke's a great commenter. He says the Lance comp, as close as he can get it, is Alex Smith. He drafted at 20 years old. Athletic, super smart, fast, classy, great pre-snap reads. Obviously Lance is bigger, better long ball. Alex maybe with a little bit of a quicker release. What do you think about that?
There's definitely some traits that match up for sure, but again, you can't get a perfect comp. I mean, he's a little bit of Alex Smith. He's a little bit of Donovan McNabb. He's a little bit of Cam. You know what I mean? He's got a little Allen to him, a little Mahomes. You can make up all these things and piece together a quarterback, but again, there's just no perfect comp. When you compare him, it's almost like he's, I don't know. When you compare him to Mahomes, let's say, there's a lot of similarities there, right? Strong arm, big arm, put together well physically, can move. But then there's so many differences. It's like, well, yeah, he's kind of got Mahomes / Allen physical traits, but then he's conservative like a young Russell Wilson. So it's like you just can't get a perfect beat on him. There's nothing out there that matches it. And when Herbert came in, I thought that there was the closest comp was Allen. But before Allen, when Allen came in, that's the one that I said the most. I have no idea who he plays like, but I can tell you he's going to be special. And that's the same feeling I'm getting about Trey. I don't know exactly who his perfect comp is. I just know he's going to be special because he's something different.
Yeah. And the one thing real quick on this topic, the way that I'll answer this is, you and I had a long discussion about 3 weeks ago with regards to if Alex Smith had been on the 2019 49ers, did they win that Super Bowl? And I think both of us kind of felt like, yes, he would. And that's the one thing, with Luke's, comparison here, that is true. Because when you think about Alex Smith, part of the problem that Alex Smith ran into early in his career is he didn't come into a situation like Trey Lance is coming into. He didn't come into a team that had talent all over the place, that had a competent head coach. Whatever you want to say or whatever I'm going to say, because I get on Kyle Shanahan quite a bit for the wins and losses, but I'm not going to say that he was incompetent. He's a better head coach, I think, than Mike Nolan, even though his record isn't all that great, right? At least he's got a winning season under his belt and so on and so forth. So, I think that's the one thing that I would say there. Smith gets underrated a little bit because of with the situation he got thrown into. So I like that one. I like that as a good comp or somebody that people really remember because they saw a lot of him in San Francisco. Trey Lance's career is not going to be anything close to Alex Smith, partly because he has that talent and he's got a heck of a group around him. So
I'll say this: if you want to compare him to 49ers, if you take everything good that Kaepernick did and threw away all the bad, and took everything good that Alex Smith did and threw away all the bad, and you made that a quarterback, that's Trey Lance.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that. Because you're getting because then you're getting the uber athleticism with the running, right? Because of the speed that both guys have.
You're getting the powerful arm, all of it. Yep.
Yeah, getting the powerful arm that Kaepernick had with maybe the accuracy of Smith and so on. That's a really good one. I like that. I like that one a lot. All right, let's jump over to the next topic really quick. And still, we're going to stay with the quarterbacks. But, the importance of the third string quarterback battle, we have all eyes are focused on the ones and two, the job for number one between Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. But there's a battle brewing at three between Nate Sudfeld and Josh Rosen. When you look at that, why do you think that's so important?
It's important because we keep talking about what's going to happen at one. And if Trey Lance wins the job, what happens with Jimmy G? And there's a chance that Jimmy's not on this roster, whether it's week one or before the trade deadline or what have you. And if he's not on this roster, that quarterback battle for number three is your backup quarterback at that point. And so it is very important that these guys get some burn, especially in the preseason, and to figure out which one of them can take over that quarterback three spot, get a stranglehold on it, and may eventually be the number two quarterback. Now, I'm not as stressed out about it as some Niner fans are. If Trey's starting, I'm not worried about the injury thing. I know that 49er fans are a little bit gun shy to get rid of Jimmy, really, even if he's not the starter, because they're like, well, what if Trey Lance goes down? Then what? Most teams don't think like this. I don't think the Packers fans, I don't think the Patriots fans and now the Buccaneers fans or the Chiefs fans or any of these fan bases, the Bills fans, I don't think they care who their backup quarterback is. It matters who the starter is. And from there, yes, it is nice to have a competent backup just in case. But usually if your starting quarterback goes out, no matter what, there's going to be a major drop-off. And usually that drop-off is not enough for you to continue doing what you're doing. The Eagles, yes, caught magic a few years back, going from Wentz to Foles. That is not the norm. That's an anomaly, and it is what it is. So regardless, if you go from Trey Lance even to Jimmy Garoppolo, that's going to be a huge drop-off. So to me, it's not as important. If Garoppolo's off this team, I'm not so worried about not having him as the backup, but I am interested to see who wins this QB3 battle because, like I said, that eventually could be our backup quarterback, and that's important.
Yeah, and based off of what I've seen in camp so far, I don't think that whoever it is, whether it's Josh Rosen or Nate Sudfeld, is really making it to where the 49ers are going to want to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo and make any kind of a trade with him at this point. They haven't been consistent enough. I understand part of it's because they don't get nearly as many reps because, the ones get their 4 reps, and then it's the 2s, and then the 3, they got those 2, Rosen and Sudfeld, are having to actually split the 3rd reps. So they're getting, not only are they getting fewer reps than the first 2, but they're getting even half of that. So
yeah,
they're just not getting enough time. But I do the importance of that, and it might not even be for 2021. It might be for 2022 because we know that Garoppolo isn't going to be back next year, especially if Lance, becomes what everybody's expecting him to be. There's going to be some kind of movement with him before next season. So, yeah, it's definitely a battle to find out if there's one of those two guys who's going to be able to come back and they're going to want to re-sign them next year, because neither one of them are signed for next year as well, neither Sudfeld or Rosen. So there's definitely some importance there to that one. And we're going to see a lot of those guys, I think, on Saturday next week when they go up against Kansas City. Those two will probably split the second half, would be my guess. And, it's definitely going to be one to keep an eye on, because one of those guys is going to be your third and possibly even be your starting quarterback. I think there's a really good chance that all four of these guys end up on the roster in some way, whether they're on the active or on the practice squad with the new changes that they made.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely see that happening. And quite frankly, if you throw a Rosen, let's say, on the practice squad, I really doubt many teams are going to be clamoring to pick him up. So you're probably okay there.
Yeah, same thing with Sudfeld. I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to be, really trying to grab them, because I think at that point, if you pull those guys, you've got to put them on your active roster. So I don't think they're going to want to do that with those guys anyway. So, and then Luke heard your response, and he liked that. He said that your comp is a good one. Take the best of Alex Smith and the best of Colin Kaepernick, get rid of all the bad, and that's the comp that he goes with. So
for sure.
So give you a point for that one. For that one. So that, we've been heavy on the quarterback so far. Let's kind of switch up gears right here. Through the beginning portion here of training camp, you've had Dee Ford and Jalen Hurd and Nick Bosa. They've all been kind of rehabbing back from injuries, and Ford and Hurd were kind of on that same path as Bosa as far as just taking place in the individual periods of practice, not really getting in during the team reps. But that changed this week. When the pads went on. And so is it time to start worrying about Nick Bosa and what's going on with him?
I'd say a little bit. I mean, don't stress yourself out over it. I'm sure he's going to play, but this is something that we talked about in the past, is don't think that Bosa is just going to come in and play 75-80% of the snaps. Like, that's not going to happen. And that's why it was so important, in my opinion, at the time, to go after a Justin Houston or an Ingram or what have you, because between him and Ford, even if they are quote unquote healthy, they're not going to play a lot of these snaps. And so you're going to need depth behind him. And Ebicom is nice, but then who, right? Sure, maybe Arden Key's fine. But even if you took Willis and Arden Key, and Willis, by the way, is suspended, but if you take those two and you add up their career sacks, it's a half a sack more than what Justin Houston got last year. And Justin Houston did it in half the snaps. So I still feel like edge, they could use some help there. Is it the most important thing? No. Corner is certainly the most dire need position on this team, but definitely know that Bosa is not going to play a ton, at least early on, while he's getting back in. And the fact that he's been getting multiple rest days tells you exactly how they plan on handling it. And it's interesting because I feel like everything they said about Dee Ford and how they were going to handle that situation is actually how they've started to handle the Bosa situation, and they're pressing in on Dee Ford a heck of a lot more. So that's just an interesting scenario that's playing out.
Yeah. And one of the things that you had mentioned, was Arden Key and his role in this. And I think it's important to note that the guy that's actually been taking the spot of Nick Bosa has been Samson Ebicom. He's been the guy that's been playing that open defensive end spot. And so he's the one that's in that role. The only concern that I really have here is, you listen to, we knew that they were going to take this slow, right? Kyle Shanahan mentioned that in the first press conference. These guys are going to work individuals. We're going to ramp them up, that whole thing. The fact that Bosa hasn't been in any contact drills other than hitting the sled, that's the only thing that concerns me. And it kind of comes from what he said yesterday was, the main thing with Bosa is that he needs to get out there and he needs to show that he can, be the guy that Nick Bosa is, right? He needs to get the reps so that he can get the confidence and get himself going. And that's what D'Amico Ryan said yesterday in his press conference. And Bosa's not getting those reps. We're now, heading into practice number 8, which we're getting really close to week 1 of the preseason. And he has yet to actually hit anybody full speed in pads, other than a blocking sled, anything that's got movement. So am I extremely worried about it? No, but I think that it's something to be a little bit concerned about, because if he doesn't start ramping up here pretty soon, chances are his snaps are going to be really low early in the season, because he's just not going to have that, that wear and tear on his body that it's going to need to be ready to play a football game.
Yeah, I said it a couple of weeks back. Expect less than 40% of the defensive snaps, at least for week 1, maybe the first few weeks up until that bye week. But, and people didn't want to hear it then, but I think they might be tuning in on that a little bit more, just because they need to take it slow with them. There's no reason. They really, and Jay Louie, by the way, 007 here on Twitter, he's right. No, they're doing a great job of managing his play. We need him for the whole season. And you're absolutely right. They need him for the whole season. Him coming out and playing 80, 90% of the snaps during week 1 does nothing for this team in the long run. You've got to wean him back into this game and allow him to make it through the rest of the season. And really, it's about a year and a half or so after that ACL is when you really start to hit your stride, which puts us, thankfully, right around playoff time. So let him get that strength back, let him get that confidence back, and just limit his play as much as you can, and worry about his cardio management and getting that ramped up. And come playoff time, we're going to have a beast on our hands. So that's the most important thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. Making sure that he's there at the end of the season or throughout the second half of the season, obviously, is important. It's just, for me, the only concern is he going to be ready to go? He hasn't played a lot in the NFL. He only played the one season in a game, right? But if he comes out, I would expect a season similar, like what you said, where he's really being worked in slowly. That's what they did at Ohio State when he was coming off of a knee injury there. He had hurt his knee, remember, in high school in his first year at Ohio State. I know he was a freshman, but they still were rotating him in and not giving him a ton of reps until his second season with them. So I kind of would expect that. So if you're betting on Bosa to win any kind of awards, I wouldn't do it. Don't expect a really big season from him, but expect him to maybe have a big contribution over the second half of the year, I think is the direction that we both agree with there.
For sure.
And then really quick while we're here, Luke, again, this is another good one. Is it time to start worrying about Javon Kinlaw? He's in a very similar boat to Nick Bosa in that he's not taking an awful lot of reps against people either. I know he hasn't taken any reps in the one-on-one drills between the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman. And as far as team drills, I think he might have played a couple of snaps on Wednesday, but it doesn't sound like he took any on Thursday. Played some on Tuesday, but maybe not on Wednesday. And if he did, it was only one or two. And so this might be another
something like he pulled himself after a play or in a drill. I'm not quite sure the details on that, but he pulled himself and didn't play. Yeah, I'm definitely worried about Kinlaw, and this is his second year, and year 1 he wasn't able to go through training camp the way that normal rookies would, and none of those rookies were. And so year 2, this time for those guys that were rookies last year, is extremely important for them to get on the field as much as possible. And I know that he put on his social media that he said he's got no injury. What else is he supposed to say? Okay, you think he's gonna just oh no, I'm injured, I'm hurt. Screw the despite what the reports are, I'm certainly hurting over here. No, he's not going to do that. So there's something going on there. There's definitely something going on. You can go back to last week on this show or Grant's show or whatever, and I go in depth about it. But the bottom line is something's up. To the extent, I'm not sure. I have a hunch, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and it's just odd that even came out. There wasn't a whole lot of reason for him to even go out there and throw that out there. Unless he was checking social media and he ran across your interview. Maybe it was you. Maybe it was your fault that he did. It's your fault. You started the whole conversation on 49ers Twitter talking about Kinlaw and his arthritic knee. Maybe that's what it was. now that I'm thinking about it, come on, Jesse.
I'd love to think I'm that important, but I highly doubt that.
Well, that's the thing, these guys, they're on social media, and
Yeah.
there are members of the 49er fan kingdom that take it upon themselves to throw things at these guys so that they can, for whatever reason, they like to, if there's an argument or beef going on about a player, there's some folks that for whatever reason will just go ahead and they'll just be like, hey, at whatever Javon Kinlaw's at is,
Yeah.
check this out. And all of a sudden now this guy's, instead of just
Now
letting
he
the guy be
knows.
doing
Yeah,
this.
that's true.
Yeah. I think that's the other piece too. And if you're on 49ers Twitter enough, it's pretty easy to figure out who some of these folks are, but we'll keep that to another time. But real quick, Raymond, he's another one of our he's always on here with us, and he mentions, the good news about the whole thing with Javon Kinlaw is that interior D line is pretty stacked, and that's for sure. And one of the things of the topics when we were talking about this that I was throwing out was maybe throwing out some of the names of guys who are surprising. And for me, the one guy that surprised me so far and with what he's looked like through camp has been Kentavious Street.
Yeah.
He looks like he's really, really good, in good shape and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he really does. He really does. And that's a good thing. I mean, he's right. Between Gibbons and DJ Jones and Kentavious Street, they're healthy there. Kerr, they're healthy. So it's, I guess I'm not so worried about this season. It's just more long term. Like what if anything is Kinlaw really going to bring to the table? It's, could be a wasted first round pick. And it's hard to continue being competitive when you throw away first round picks on a regular basis. So maybe it's not the end of the world that they don't have any for the next couple of years. You can't lose if you aren't making a pick, right? Like that's it. So good thinking.
You can't blow it if you don't make a choice. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Street is the guy that's taking those starters reps in place of Kinlaw. So when Kinlaw's not out there, it's Kentavious Street, and he's a guy that was drafted as a defensive end, but he's really big and he's doing a really good job inside. The other guy inside that was you mentioned Kevin Gibbons, he's doing really well also, but Zach Kerr is a guy that I was interested in seeing, and he struggled a little bit in the one-on-one pass rush drills. His numbers aren't all that great throughout his career, and he doesn't. Right now, I know we're so early in camp and whatnot, but he doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to be a part of their pass rush group or a guy that you're going to really worry about if he's out there, in a pass rushing situation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that with or without Kinlaw, that interior line is very, very deep and very, very good.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to watch them play and go through it. And we didn't touch on the secondary. Maybe that'll be in our next show because we're getting to the end here.
For sure.
There's definitely some things here. The last thing I'll just say about where we are right now when it comes to the team, and this wasn't a topic, but the only guy that's a rookie that's playing with the starters is Trey, but it's not Trey Lance, it's Trey Sermon. He's the only one that's getting those starters reps on a regular basis. The other guys are all playing with the 2s and 3s, and so I know there's a lot of people that are getting worried about the cornerback situation, and that's understandable. They're getting them just hold on a little bit because Emmanuel Mosley should be back here in the next few days. I know he's got on the reserve COVID-19 list, but he should be back because it's been a week now, so he should be back soon. And then these rookies are getting the work in, and so we're probably going to be seeing a lot more of them in the coming weeks. And same thing with Aaron Banks. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of him as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think, Aaron Banks, a lot of people are asking about him and, what's going on over at right guard. I think that he'll start to get more burn. And, yeah, I'm sure that these guys will, but they still were drafted late and they're still rookies. And so I believe that cornerback spot has a glaring weakness. And, again, if Verrett, who, by the way, isn't vaccinated, if he misses time for either COVID or injury or what have you, that's going to hurt bad. Like that, everybody's worried about it, getting rid of Jimmy, and what does that second quarterback spot look like? Well, what does it look like at corner? That's way more important, in my opinion, and burning deep in my mind right now about this team, because I'm looking at it going, this team is really, really good. They're one corner away from being great and probably the best team on paper in the whole league. So, whoever, Xavier Howard, Gilmore, somebody. like try to make a major move.
Yeah, if they could do that, it'd be over the top in terms of the talent on this team. Because that would be at all levels of the defense. There'd be nothing to really be worried about. Yep. So we're going to wrap this show up in just a minute, but I like Pine Orr's little thing here. He says he likes my headset. Called the Napalm Strike. This is exactly why I wore this one tonight. You might have noticed, guys, if you're watching my shows, that I've been using my little, Apple iPods lately. But I went with this one because you guys like it, because I look like the helicopter pilot from the A-Team, calling those strikes. Get out there and get after it. That's why I wanted to wear these tonight. Plus, I can hear Jessie better when we're talking with this. It does a better job of canceling out the sound around me, and you start getting old like me, and it's hard to hear. So,
yeah, nothing like hearing me in surround sound, I'm sure.
Real quick, I know we're going to jump off, and I got to get going too. But Raven asks, besides Verrett, which corners look best? And really outside of Verrett, they haven't looked all that great. He's the one guy that's kind of locked down everybody.
I'm sure K1. I'm sure he's looked fine, right? I mean, at least beyond serviceable, above serviceable.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking more. I think the question's
1
more
and 2.
The outside guys, and outside of that, they haven't really been. You look at it, they start off with Tim Harris Jr. He's gone now, and it kind of just goes through the list. But it's something to definitely keep an eye on. I wouldn't say there's anybody that I think is really standing out at that corner spot, at the second cornerback position. So I'll keep an eye on that for you guys tomorrow when they get back to practice tomorrow, and I'll be there to check that out. And so maybe I know I had somebody ask me a couple days ago, but I'll try to get some video for that and let you guys see that.
Says, Jack, you look like Tom Allen. I think isn't it Tim Allen?
No, but Tom's his brother that nobody knows about. No,
yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. No, I don't know how he says I look like. I've heard Tim Allen. Somebody in some of these things I keep hearing Trent Dilfer. Maybe I think that's because of my facial hair. They think I look like Trent Dilfer. I don't know, man. Anyway, but I really appreciate everybody that's jumped on. I'm getting really close to 1,000 too, Jesse. I don't know if you noticed lately, but I was like,
you're right there. You were at 980 earlier. I'm like, okay, we got to get him there. He's getting close. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you do subscribe. And if you are subscribed, make sure you hit that bell notification so you know every time he goes live. And then tell a friend so they tell a friend, and we can get them over 1,000 the way that it needs to be over here.
There you go. Because we're bringing the content pretty hot and heavy. I know Jessie does a lot of great stuff over on his channel, Last Second Sports, and I'm trying to add something, at least once a day. Try to make it on a daily basis for you guys. So keep it locked in here, and keep it locked in over to Last Second Sports, and we're gonna bring it to you, hot and heavy. A lot of content here with first game coming up next Saturday. So appreciate everybody. And Jessie, got anything you want to say to throw it out?
Yeah, 10 minutes, Last Second Sports. I'll be over there with my crew. We are going to be we're going to talk a little bit about training camp. We're going to make some early predictions on offensive, defensive player of the year, MVP, rookies, that type of stuff. And we'll probably take some calls as well. So be ready to call in, and we'll see you over there in about 10 minutes. If you're not done with football content, go ahead and head on over, and we'll keep the party cracking.
Woohoo, get over there, because Jessie and his gang are great dudes, and they're going to put on a heck of a show for you. Thank you, everybody, and y'all have a great night.